Hey everyone, welcome back to Buzzworthy. I'm your host, Lacey Harris. I dive into the rare stories entrepreneurs tell about building their businesses, but most importantly, themselves. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Today we are back with Dr. Laura Schutz, who is a physician in her ER department at her hospital. She's also a mom of two beautiful baby girls, a soccer player who travels to play soccer, should I include that? And now she's an entrepreneur and building a tech company to help us take care of ourselves and each other a little bit, but in a different way than you might think right now. So, Laura's going to tell us a bit about her journey today and what got her started on Take Care. Hi, Laura. Nice to meet you today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me here.
So excited to dive into your story because it's so complex and you do so many things. I know you still play soccer very actively while you're a doctor and now building this tech company. I'm so excited to learn about your journey and um, how you can take it to the next level with Take Care.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's definitely been a ride and life is definitely extremely busy right now. But there's only so much time in the day, so some things just need to get cut back to make space for it all.
It's true. And everyone wants to have it all, but I think it's trending a little bit more now that you just can't have it all at once and be
That's right.
super happy with it all at once. But that's a
That's
whole
right.
other discussion. Um, I think what's really important today is to really help people understand the inspiration behind Take Care and who Laura is and why Laura is building this thing called Take Care.
Sure.
So, one of the things we really love to understand about our entrepreneurs is what do you think set you up to become an entrepreneur? Because it's not for everybody. So, is there something that, is it a combination of life experiences, a childhood experience, or you are just so passionate? Tell us about it.
That's a great question. So I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, actually. So my dad is in the automotive industry. He owns car dealerships, and I have a grandfather who he was a builder and now is manages properties all over the place that he owns,
Wow.
different strip malls and things like that. And so I've been surrounded by a family of entrepreneurs, and I've always known that I've seen what they've done, and I've seen the ability to, once you make something great, be able to be in that kind of leadership position and then still have some income while not having to be in the emergency department on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day or every other weekend or nights and evenings. To be very honest, finding a
Yeah.
way to be able to balance both worlds and have some autonomy in my life. Um, but certainly I grew up working for my dad every summer, and worked at his dealerships and was very involved. I actually sold cars for a long time. It's a funny shift
Wow.
going from being a working as a younger kid, basically, a teenager, selling cars, and then in my 20s selling cars with my dad. And I worked as his business manager for a while, where I set up everybody's car loans and did all of that paperwork, and it was a great experience. But um, I certainly realized that that industry wasn't for me pretty quickly, and I felt like I had a handle on how to do the work pretty quickly. And I was like, I'm
Yeah.
not sure this is like a long-term thing for me that's going to keep me engaged and interested and excited. And you're also working in a very, to be frank, male dominated industry that wasn't
Oh,
super
I know.
pleasant. So I knew I didn't I after my last summer when I was working as a business manager there, I was like, this is not something I want to do for the rest of my life, despite my dad really wanting me to be an entrepreneur and take over his business. But I knew that I wanted to do something on my own one day, and I've always been looking for that thing that kind of had the right mesh of um, my skills, my interests, and something that would do good for people,
Mhm.
and something that I truly believed in. that was, I was looking for that Venn diagram of my interests, my skills, something that I thought I could be passionate about that could do good for other people. And that's where Take Care kind of checked all those boxes. And I decided to go all in.
Oh, I love that. What an incredible, I think, journey because I think a lot of business owners have that goal, like your dad, for their children.
Yes,
And maybe eventually one day you might feel the same about Take Care for your girls.
totally. Yeah, I'm sure I will.
Um, so I'm sure you can understand that from his perspective, but I think it's incredible what working at a young age can do for you in terms
Yes.
of building your confidence, building your navigation skills, building your problem solving skills. And
Yeah,
those are skills that like are completely invaluable, especially when you jump into this journey as an entrepreneur and also as a
absolutely.
physician as you currently are as well too. So,
Yeah, I learned so much from working for my dad. And even the sales aspect, right? Like the number one thing I learned was you have to believe in your product if you're going to sell it, right? There was stuff
yeah,
that, don't tell my dad this, but I'm like, not sure I believe in that product enough to actually sell it. And the whole dealership actually felt the same way. We would have
yeah,
guys come in and be like, take on our critical illness insurance and sell it to your customers. And it's like, no, I don't feel good about that. That doesn't give me warm fuzzies, something that you
yeah.
have to have a specific 5 illnesses only in your lifetime, and then maybe they'll pay it out and it's super expensive. I don't know. There's just things that you have to believe in the product in order to sell it. And it's so easy to be able to talk about things you believe in, and sell those things.
Absolutely. Yeah, because when you're selling, I think the biggest thing people look for is authenticity.
Yeah.
And they can sniff it out like, a shark smelling a drop of blood in water from miles away. And
Yeah.
when you don't have that, it's hard to close that sale. So,
Yeah.
you're
You got to believe in it
absolutely
yourself.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now Take Care is on the horizon. You've gained all these skills, you've gained all of these experiences with your dad. Um, what is it that you started to see was an issue and you're just like, we need this to happen? Like, give us some context around that and help us understand what led you to
Sure.
defining the problem of Take Care.
It's a great question, and it's one that's going to take me a little bit of time to answer if you're okay with that. So I might just verbal diarrhea for a minute here.
We're
But
here for a good story.
I'm going to backtrack you to I'll tell you a little bit about myself as a physician first. So I was always involved in physician leadership. I really enjoyed that. I took on a really big leadership role in residency where I was a program chief resident, meaning I oversaw, there's different sites chiefs as I was a resident in Kingston at Queens. And,
Mhm.
they have family medicine program in Kingston, in Oshawa, in Peterborough, multiple distributed sites all under the Queens umbrella.
Yeah.
And I was the program chief, which meant there's a site chief at each of the sites. And then I was the program chief that looked after the site chiefs and the hundreds of residents underneath them. And I got to work really closely with the program director. And I loved that job. I loved that job. I loved being in that leadership role. I thought that I was good at it. And it kind of continued me on that trajectory of continuing to be involved in leadership very early in my career. And so in Brantford, when I became a staff physician, I was finished my residency. I did my emergency residency. I quickly became the president of the Medical Staff Association and got shooed into that role. And it was 2019, 2020 when I had that job. And that
Wow.
role is basically the person who leads all of the physicians, the dentists, the midwives at the hospital. And I'm responsible for advocating for them while liaising with the CEO, the board of directors at the hospital. And we
Mhm.
all know what happened in 2020, right? So
Yeah.
March of 2020, here I am. I'm the president of the Medical Staff Association. We're in the global pandemic. I'm a frontline ER doctor. I also sat on our ER COVID committee as one of the few people who dealt with all of the rolling out changes that we had to react to, sometimes multiple times a day. Who could get a swab? what were we going to do with people who come in with a fever, and how are we going to separate them from the chemotherapy patients? How are we going to communicate all of these algorithms with our community physicians in town, sitting on, meetings with them, liaising with the entire hospital and having meetings, sometimes, multiple a week, with all of the physicians in the hospital involved and getting informed about what's changing and what rules we're following. It was a lot. It was a lot. I was also finishing my master's in quality improvement and patient safety at U of T at the same time.
Oh,
So I was like
no.
a frontline doctor. I was the MSA president. I was finishing my master's. I was on this ER COVID committee. I don't know. It was a very busy time in my life. I was working some days like 16, 20 hours a day. Like I was just up all night thinking about this, how to keep people safe. And it was incredibly stressful, right?
I
It was
can
an
imagine.
incredibly stressful time. And then we all had this, like, in a blink of an eye realization, the whole world, our mortality is like very in your face, right? Because we are seeing and reading some crazy things that are happening across the globe, and we're wondering, is this going to happen to us? And how do we prevent this? You know, as physicians in the emergency room, and our nurses, we were not sure if we were safe to be around our family. Are we going to bring home something? We didn't have the right PPE, we didn't have the right masks, and we didn't even know how this was spread. It was a stressful time, right?
Yeah,
And so that experience really leads you to think about how much time you're giving to your hospital to work, right? Like
yeah.
a ton of time, how short life is. And then also all of the experiences with families and patients that I see, not just in the pandemic, but every day in the emergency room, where there's conflict that doesn't need to be there because they haven't had the appropriate conversations about planning ahead for end of life, right? They
Mhm.
haven't had the time, when they didn't know, they don't have the appropriate framework or the tools to know how to have these conversations. And it creates a lot of extra stress in between families that doesn't need to be there. And it was something that also bubbled up for me personally in the pandemic. So I lost a couple of family members in the pandemic. One who knew he was sick, he had cancer, and he had planned ahead. He and his wife were extremely organized. He had what I would call a fantastic death. He, died at home with a hospital bed, his wife by his bedside. He had an incredible memorial of life service where he brought in a taco truck. Like they go to Mexico every year for, half the year, and they just
Yeah.
spent so much time there. So he knew for his memorial service, this is what they were going to do at their country home. They brought in this taco truck, they brought in a band, there was all kinds of memorabilia there was a microphone, people could get up and speak about him, and it was just like this wonderful, incredible day to memorialize him. And contrast that with another family member we lost, who his wife had mild dementia, so she couldn't be his power of attorney, so the children were the power of attorney. And I think they really struggled because they didn't know what his wishes were. And he
Mhm.
just fell at home and wound up in hospital and just went down, down, down. And there was a lot of extra stress placed on them over all of the many medical decisions that needed to be made. And nobody knew for sure what was the right thing. What was it that Sean wanted? There was um, the priest didn't even know his name at the funeral, which was just sad. Um,
That's so
so
sad.
it was challenging. It was a challenging situation, and I know it was so stressful on the powers of attorney, having to decide all of this stuff and having to hear every other family members chirp about what their opinion was on what to do, and it just created a lot of extra stress that is hard to see at an already stressful time when you've lost somebody you love, right?
Yeah.
And so this is where take care is bubbling out of this, out of my professional experience in the ER, seeing this happen all of the time with people who are getting, this boom, sudden change. There's a critical illness, there's an accident, there's something that happens. Um, and then my personal experiences of seeing how things can go really well, but how, when you plan ahead, but also how hard it can be on the family, and how it can be prevented, though, with planning.
I can
Long-winded answer.
No, but I think it's the right answer. It's the right answer because it's everything you had experienced, especially at such a critical time in the world where everyone, absolutely everyone, was thinking about their
Yeah.
mortality.
Yeah.
And everyone was terrified for at least a period of time before things sort of calm down and people can feel like they can exhale just a little bit.
Yes.
So, you being in the thick of it all, seeing patients, seeing the fear in people's eyes, and seeing how, you know, the risks being high, the uncertainty being high, but not just uncertainty about life, but like what happens if, what happens when. And I can absolutely see how those experiences stick with you. And personally, it's something that I've never really considered, is maybe the emotional aspect of what doctors actually see and experience, especially with families when they come in for medical
It's
services
a
at
lot.
one time.
Yeah.
So that's actually quite a unique insight into how one care can be given if decisions can't be made well, and if the person who has sort of, the power of health kind of or power of attorney status within the family, they're going to be influenced in some way. And who knows if that is truly what the individual receiving that care or the decisions being made on their behalf
And
um,
that's where all the problems
truly
come from.
want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very common situation because of the structure in Ontario and in many places, many provinces around Canada. There's something called a hierarchy of substitute decision makers.
Mm,
For when you're dealing with powers of attorney of health. There's different powers of attorney, but for
yes.
powers of attorney of
Mhm.
health in Canada, it's generally an automatic thing. If you have not legally named somebody, you haven't filled out the paperwork and said, this is the person I want to be my POA of personal care, there's kind of a rank order list. And if it's not legally done, then it falls to your partner or your spouse. If you don't have one of those, then it goes to your children or your parents. And this is where trouble happens
Yes.
because it's when all of the children are sharing this role, which is what the law says, right? They're going to share this role, they're going to make
Oh,
these decisions
interesting.
together, and it creates a lot of strife and conflict and disagreeing about, no, mom wants everything. Let's do absolutely everything, keep her alive. And then another kid is like, that's not what they want, and it's a very difficult situation for families to navigate and for physicians to have to navigate. And the healthcare team, like everybody that works in healthcare, has seen this. They know it's real. It's not just my anecdotal experience. There's so much medical literature that backs this up. It's the number one reason why families fight at end of life
Yep.
is over making these medical decisions for their loved ones. And it's because they just haven't talked about it. They haven't talked about it.
Yeah. And so Take Care is creating now a space for these conversations to happen. So tell us specifically, what is that very strong problem you're looking to solve with Take Care?
Yeah, so Take Care helps you to get completely organized. It is a platform that provides a framework to walk the user through all of the things that their family's going to need to know if they're incapable of making decisions for themselves and after they've passed away. So, for example, there's a category called My Health Wishes where I guide the user through making a very kind of um, it's a spoon-fed way to dynamically answer questions about if this medical scenario pops up, what would you want? What is a good quality of life for you? What's a poor quality of life for you? And there'll be little videos along the way where I can give you some more tips and some more guidance from my own experiences to help guide the person.
Yeah.
But the idea is that they walk through, they just answer these questions and they share it with their family. Right, so the software allows you to share these wishes automatically, digitally with your loved ones. They get stored in the cloud. So whether you're in Hawaii on a beach and there's an emergency or you're with me in the ER, you can pull this information up, you can see it and, respond to it, making an informed choice. That's the idea. And that's where my slogan comes from. It's plan, share, take care, right? So the user goes through, they answer all of the things in the framework, and there's a lot more to it than that. But, they answer all of the questions. It spits out a summary page. You share it with your loved ones. They are able to access it. You can update it anytime. And then this allows everybody to take care of one another way better.
Yeah. And you can all just simply be on the same page.
That's right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's the whole point, is that everybody knows what the real wishes are and why decisions are being made. And the whole
Mhm.
point is to make this like really stressful situation more manageable, right? Try
Yeah.
and pick out these preventable stressors, these like medium, these small stressors that are in there. There's all kinds of other decisions that need to be made, that if you have information, it will make it a lot less stressful. Informed decisions are so much easier to make than ones where you're just shooting in the dark and you don't know what to do.
100%. And what that made me think of just now is I think maybe some people think, and maybe I'm also actually uncomfortable with the thought of death and planning it. But the story you told about, the patient that was dying at home and they had a memorial service with a food truck and all of these like fun elements around it,
Yes,
your platform like will create that space for
that's
not just
right.
the doom and gloom, but also like, how do you truly want to be celebrated for the
Yes.
life that you have lived?
Yeah, there's supposed to be, the hope is that you can, I don't want to use the word joy because a lot of people might find that weird, but almost, right? Like there's a thoughtfulness to it. And that brings joy to a lot of people. When they can do thoughtful things for their loved ones, it makes you feel good, right? And it's a nice warm thing. And so there's a lot of space in the platform for that, where you can, have this whatever you want, party, funeral, both, neither, you can say that stuff and you can talk about it. You can say, I want a taco truck, or this is the food I want, or I want to have a big gala where people raise money for this specific charity, or there's a whole section on legacy planning where you can upload recipes, videos, voice recordings, things that you want to be released after you've passed away to your loved ones that they will cherish, right? These mementos that they don't know exist, and then they will get sent out after you've passed away. There's so much you can do with it to be thoughtful about this.
I really love that because you always see, the thought of leaving a video behind or something like that as like a manifesto, which often isn't in the best, most positive light. But
Yeah.
to receive these like little tokens of gifts that somebody's like accumulated over the years, and has packaged specifically for you, it's almost like a special gift and the way that person wants to be remembered, going forward. And I think it's interesting to see maybe the discomfort of us when it comes to the ending of things in general, right? I don't think as like maybe a society we're as comfortable with things ending, right? Take
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Grey's Anatomy. Is it ever going to end?
Yeah, what season are they on? I don't even know. The Pit is going to bring some competition to them now, though, if you've watched The Pit. It's like a new popular medical show.
No, I haven't heard of it yet, but man, like I was, you know, I don't feel like I'm old now, but when I think back to Grey's Anatomy starting since I was in like middle school, that blows my mind.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think I was in university, so I'm older than you, but yeah, it's been on for a long time. It's been on for
Yeah,
a long time.
yeah,
And you're totally right though. It's one of the big things I'm hoping to do with Take Care is a culture shift to make it
mhm.
okay to talk about this stuff,
Yeah,
because it's so important. There's so much evidence that it helps your family. It's like the most loving thing you can do for your loved ones is plan ahead, right? But we plan ahead. Kids do fire drills at school. They do lockdown drills. We buy
mhm.
insurance for our car, for our home, for, stuff doesn't mean these things are going to happen, right? Because that's a common thing is people think, oh, if you talk about death, you're going to die, right? But
Yeah.
we do other things in our lives all the time. Like if you buy car insurance, are you going to get in a crash? No, right? And there's so much evidence that these superstitions aren't true, but it's this magical thinking, if you call it that. The physicians, we use the term magical thinking, but it's one of these things it's this weird societal and cultural thing where it's much more common to be superstitious about this, to be avoidant about it. But the truth is, it's not much different from planning for a fire drill, right? Where if you have the plans, this situation comes up, you are much better prepared for dealing with this emergency. It's the same
Mhm.
thing with your health. Most people are going to have an illness and require the hospital at some point in their life. 1 in 2 people will be diagnosed with a serious illness.
Oh,
You need a
wow.
plan in place for what happens, when this happens. It's not just about take care, is not just about end of life, but it's about that moment when you've been diagnosed with something and you need support from other people in your life. And it's coming up with this plan in advance for that, just like you would for a fire drill or just, same thing for buying insurance for these things, except these are way more likely to happen and
Yeah.
guaranteed for death. Like it's everybody is going to die, unfortunately.
Everyone's
So,
going to
so
die.
we kind of
Yes.
all need a bit of a wake up call and to be like, this can happen at any time. I see it, the blink of an eye, unfortunately, where families' lives are just flipped upside down. And these are the moments where it's so much harder, especially if it's a younger person. It's
Yeah.
so hard on the family. It's this horrific situation for everybody. And then
Mhm.
it multiplies if there's been no organization because everybody thinks they're not going to be the one. It's not going to
Yes.
happen to them,
That
right?
invincibility
It's
component
right.
that we all have, like, "Oh, that's not gonna happen to me. I'm not gonna be that 1 in 2. I'm gonna be the other one."
That's
Right? But
right.
we all can't be that other one.
Yeah. But then it just creates so much added stress for an incredibly stressful situation already.
So, at what point in someone's life do you think it's truly a trigger point, a moment? Like, what is happening in someone's life that should have them consider structuring or signing up for take care? Because we often, like, I think people live their life in sort of a linear way. Society sort of set it up like, you go to school, you get a job, you get married, you have kids, you take care of your parents die, then maybe that's the first time they're even considering their own mortality. Or from the insurance industry's perspective, they say the second you have a kid, you should get life insurance because now you have to take care of that child if something happens to you going forward. So,
Yeah.
at what point in someone's life you think take care really will be the pivotal thing at that moment that they should consider?
Yeah, I personally think it's never too early to plan ahead. And that is the joy of this is it's meant to be dynamic, right? You update it as your life evolves, as things change in your life, your experiences, what you're exposed to changes, your wishes are going to change too, right? And it's never going to be a bad thing to have your wishes documented, right? It's an insurance policy for your family at the end of the day, right? And especially if you are responsible for big things in your life, if you have children, if you are a homeowner, if you have a business, these are all things that your loved ones are going to have to figure out if something critical happens to you. And having a roadmap and a game plan for that stuff is super important.
And someone might say, I'm just trying to think about what the audience is thinking about. And one of the things they might say is, well, I already have a will in place. How is
Yeah.
take care different than a will?
It's a great question. So a will is about your assets. It's about dividing up all of the financial things that you have, right? So who's going to get your home? Who's going to get your car? What about your investments and your bank accounts that you have? You have to outline all the things that your executive of your estate are going to deal with and divvy up all of the things of value in your life, or debts too. How's that going to get handled? Who's going to take care of your kids? Who's their caregiver if you pass away? It's these big, major questions, and really a lot about the financial stuff at the end of the day. The will typically does not include all of these dynamic and detailed things like, do you want your Facebook account deleted or memorialized? What about all your email addresses? What's going to happen to them? Do you care what clothes you're buried in? Do you want to be buried? These are the things and the decisions that your loved ones are going to have to deal with, and they'll just be shooting in the dark if you don't provide some guidance on this. And a lot of people don't even know to plan for this stuff, right? Like, I just had a friend, she had passed away about a year and a half ago, and it was just her birthday recently, the anniversary of her birthday, and people were posting on her Facebook wall wishing her happy birthday, right? And this is stuff that happens all the time. Somebody's passed away and their social media stuff still exists. The family doesn't know how to shut it down. They haven't talked about memorializing it, deleting it, these kinds of things. And
Yeah.
it just adds extra stress that doesn't need to be there for families. I've
Mhm.
seen families where they can't get into their loved one's computer to do anything because they don't know any of the passwords. They haven't thought about these things in advance, and they're just totally stuck now, not knowing how to help sort out any of their affairs, their taxes, like all of their digital files are locked because they haven't
Mhm.
thought about this.
Wow. So it's more of, living sort of a transition, right? It helps you with that transition from life, and then once you pass, and then after that, to make it really, really seamless for
Yeah,
someone that's responsible for, you in any of those phases of your life.
yeah, it's all of these details and all of the decisions that need to get ironed out that generally aren't put into a will, because nobody's going to pay a lawyer $450 an hour to write down all this stuff that you might change your mind on, um, or your passwords are going to change, or things like this, right? So it's a space for all of this extra stuff that your family's going to have to deal with, and to try and provide a framework for that so everybody knows what's the kind of stuff that we need to communicate about in advance in case or when this happens. That's the idea, and that's the difference. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, it makes
Mm.
sense. It's really a softer touch to really manage in someone, and like you said, taking the noise out of the tension and the problems that arise in these situations, because even with a will, those can still be contested.
Yes.
They can, all of this legal stuff can happen around wills as well too. But
Yes.
with take care, you can probably have stronger controls of what that looks like in your life, and it's a little bit more dynamic and not so expensive to make changes to.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. Yeah. And the whole idea is that it's supposed to help with that conflict, right?
yeah.
I know that this is not going to solve all of the chaos in the world. When stressful situations happen, it's hard for families, right? This isn't going to make it perfect. It's not going to make losing a loved one, all of the grief and the stress that comes with that go away, but it will make it more manageable, and it won't add on all of this piles and piles of stress that can just really accentuate a horrible situation. That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to help you, and help you sort out caring for your family and kind of gelling together at a time when you're grieving and you're sad,
Mhm.
because you're not fighting over all these
Yeah.
details,
Yeah.
and kind of taking that off the table so you can focus on each other. That's the point of it.
I love that. So, Laura, have you written out your own take care plan as yet?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to
Yes.
share a little
Yeah.
bit? Do you have any fun things in there that other people might want to consider for using Take Care?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, there's stuff in there that my spouse already knows about. I and that we're already using some of it. But I'll tell you, so one of the things is I would like a bench to memorialize myself. So I'm an outdoorsy person, and I am somebody that, loves hiking, like loves finding that beautiful view and vista, and having a bench or multiple benches. My wife knows that the dream would be to put one on the top of a mountain somewhere, where people can rest, and it can be like, there's my view forever, is, looking over a lake and a mountain, with a little plaque on it saying, this is in memorial of me. That's one of the things
That's
in
so
there.
serene and such a great idea as even like an option within the application as well too, right?
Yeah.
Like how can you even execute something like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it
there's a place to say, have you set aside funds for this kind of thing? Because it's one thing, don't do it to your family, please, where you're like, oh, I want this huge ball gala after I die, but like I've saved zero money for it. You probably should think about that aspect too, because that won't be too nice. And it will be the opposite of what I'm trying to achieve if you say, oh, yeah, throw me a huge, massive, like $20,000 party, but I've got no money for it. Like, you have to think about this stuff too, right?
Yeah, be a little bit realistic about it as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what's kind of really lovely about your idea of a bench is you're still giving after you're gone and there's something that's really nice about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of want it to be a nice and a thoughtful thing. That's right. Instead of just a sad go and cry. It's like, look at this beautiful thing that brings back memories of, I lived in New Zealand for a little while and just loved it there. I love to be hiking and outside and in the mountains, and it's very me. Instead of
Yeah.
a tombstone. They can have a tombstone if they want, that can be their decision. But for me, it's like I would love a bench.
I like it. I like it a lot. So, Laura, we've learned so much about Take Care and so much about you and like your own, entrepreneurial journey. What do you find has been the most rewarding thing in building Take Care so far?
Great question. I know that I'm building something that's going to make a difference in people's lives, right? Like, even just having people hear about it and think about it, I think that is a step in the right direction
Mm.
and can be part of this culture shift to normalize it. So it feels really good to be building a product that I know is going to help people. And at the end of the day, it's something that helps drive me forward, knowing that this is something that when I speak to people who have been through a situation that was difficult, they get it right away. Like, they know how important this is, and their eyes just light up. And it's one of these things that it's so crystal clear to the people who have had these not fun experiences how important this is. And so being a part of that is really great.
So, where can people find more information about Take Care, Laura?
Yeah, so you can head over to my website. It's takecaretogether.ca. You can sign up. There's free webinars there that I'm running. You can check out our events calendar and sign up for our free webinar to learn more about, the basics of the things you need to know now. You can follow us. There's a lot of stuff we put out on our social media. So on Instagram at takecaretogether.ca is our handle. We're also on Facebook. You can find us there. And we try to put out, educational things for people to learn more about what you need to do to plan ahead.
Oh, I love that. So, all of that information, how to find Dr. Laura and Take Care, will all be in the episode description below that you can find. But before we wrap up the podcast, as an entrepreneur, we know the journey is one with lots of peaks and valleys. And I want you to reflect on your journey for the past year. And I have three questions for you.
All right.
And all I need is a one-word answer.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So, what is the one thing you're taking away from last year's experience as an entrepreneur?
Failure is normal. As a physician, well, I won't get into the details, we're done, but failure is a part of the process in being an entrepreneur.
Okay. Number two, what is the number one thing you look forward to in
I
the
can't
future?
wait for more people to be using the platform and benefiting from it.
What is one thing you are leaving behind that you've learned last year?
Hmm. That's an interesting question. One thing I'm leaving behind that I've learned last year. I think as a physician, I already touched on this in the first one, but it was hard for me to realize that in being an entrepreneur, you're going to fail. Like you're going to try things and they're going to suck and they're not going to work.
Mhm.
And I think that's the thing that I'm taking into, um, my next year moving forward is that that's okay. And you'd think I'd be more used to it because I'm in quality improvement and it's all about trying things and failing and trying again. But it's harder, I think, to feel like, oh, do people not like this? Is it like when you put up a post or something and nobody interacts with it? I just got to be more okay with that. And putting myself out there and knowing that not everything's going to be perfect. It's not a like 100% right all the time. It's a try it, see what works, see what sticks, see what resonates.
Wow, I love that. So it's what I guess I learned from you in the past year and how you're moving forward is you're really learning from fear of failing,
Mm.
um, and taking that forward into the future. And you're leaving that fear behind with all the confidence that you've actually gained in the last year of doing this and knowing that failure isn't a full setback for you.
That's right. It's part
Um,
of the process.
and I absolutely, absolutely love that. So, anyone thinking about going into entrepreneurship, this is actually something that I struggled with when I first started as well too. And
Yeah.
it still happens to me. I'm still sometimes a little bit fearful. So, I want to thank you so much, Laura, for telling us about your own personal journey about building Take Care and what you're taking into the future. And I know someone is going to be inspired by this. And everyone, don't forget to check out Take Care at takecaretogether.ca. All the information is down below, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We're so glad to have you as part of our Buzzworthy community as we grow our network of buzzworthy businesses. Continue to follow us on all the social media platforms at buzzworthy_pod and follow us on whatever platform you're listening to so that you can get the new episodes as soon as they're out. This Buzzworthy podcast could not be done without our incredible team, starting with our music by Khaled Imam, our video and sound engineer, James Clark, Yvette Robichaux, our social media manager, Cesar Cardania, our brand and creative lead, and finally, your host and executive producer, Shalacy Harris. We'll see you next week.